Hello everyone, I'm Thom. Since this coronavirus disruption started, I've been hosting this vlog to eat beef jerky and connect across the internet. And the beef jerky part, of course, is silly and pointless. I'm not a food critic. But this vlog has let me explore some fun ideas with you, especially regarding game design. And I plan to keep doing it. Today is the 30th of September. It's almost October of 2020. Pretty much 3/4 of the year have gone by. I'm sure we're all very happy to hear that 3/4 of an awful year have gone by. So we've only got 3 months left. Woohoo! The news doesn't stop, of course, being exhausting and crazy. Nor does our American politics. But I am not here to talk about politics. I am here to talk about game design and beef jerky, to try and lift everyone's spirits just a tiny bit. So I know that I can, but just a tiny bit. It's the best I can do for you. Hold on. Gonna deliver. All right. I am gonna start this 48th episode of my jerky blog by talking about another minor or lesser served game genre. And I think I'm going to wake up everybody's nostalgia circuits when I talk about a little game called Lemmings. So set the Wayback Machine for the late 80s, and I first encountered Lemmings on the Amiga, which I think is the actual computer it was originally programmed on, but no, maybe it was on the BBC Micro, but I'm not sure. At any rate, Lemmings is where I encountered it. You can see it in the box on the lower left. And Lemmings was a game unlike any we had ever seen before. First off, for its time, it had amazing animation. And that was really actually kind of down to the fact that the little people who moved along, they all had really good, fun little walking animation. But they were very small, and all they did was walk pretty much. So, of course, the game could provide a nice, smooth walking animation. And since there were, 30, 40 of them on the screen at one time, it looked like a lot of animation was going on, even though it was basically the same. So, in some ways, it was a game very much optimized for the limitations, or to work around the limitations of early computers like the Amiga. Not like Commodore 64 limitations, but pretty limited. But also because of that, it had a really distinctive game mechanic. And the way I like to describe the game mechanic of Lemmings is that you want to protect your avatars, but you cannot control your avatars. These little people, these little lemmings that go doo 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 and make funny little voice noises, making them cute. The point of the game is not to tell them where to go. The point of the game is to modify their environment around them to ensure that they go in the right direction. Now, anybody who's played Lemmings knows that's not quite true. A major mechanic of Lemmings is to take a standard lemming and turn it into a specialized lemming. And there are many different specialized lemmings. Lemmings that can climb, lemmings that can fall on parachutes, lemmings that build ladders, lemmings that stop and put out their hands and tell other lemmings to turn around and go back. I think that, and since Lemmings was kind of a brand, and it actually had several spin-offs and upgrades and lost levels and whatever have you, the number of different specialty things your lemming could do was expanded into well over a dozen, I think, at some point. But it didn't change the fact that many of the specialty lemmings that you activated or turned into had a limited number. You only had 5 blockers or 5 fallers or 5 ladders or something, and that was all you got in order to get all your lemmings across the level. So you couldn't just, at least normally, that every level was different, and they were all clever puzzles. It was essentially a real-time puzzle game, but And when I say real time, there was pause. So yeah, real time with pause. But at any rate, it was a puzzle game, and you had to use your ability to change the lemmings in clever ways. And so, of course, with the ladder lemming, for instance, it was a perfect example of how one lemming changed in a specific way changed the environment for every other lemming, so that every other lemming could get across a gap or whatever. And also, it was a perfect example of a specialty type of lemming that when that specialty type of lemming finished its job of building a ladder, it would go back to being a normal lemming and move along. However, a stopper lemming and several other kinds of lemmings were the kind where when you turned them from a standard lemming into a specialty lemming, they remained that for the rest of the game, and basically they were a sacrificial lemming. You could not get them to the exit, which was the goal of every level. And so one of the cutest and in many games there's always a hey, see this, hey, check this out aspect to the gameplay where you want to show your friends what's cool about the game. So you go, hey, check this out, and press a particular button or do a specific thing. That's sometimes one of the most attractive things about video games is a video game's ability to have a hey, check this out feature. That's why fatalities exist in Mortal Kombat. Hey, you got to check this out. Watch when I finish this guy. And Lemmings had a feature where you basically could make any lemming explode. So you click on the lemming, and there'd be a little countdown above its head of 5, 4, 3, 2, and then it would grab its head and shout, "Oh no!" in a big voice, and then it would go boom and little particles everywhere. The most amazing and silly thing. But of course, that was, to do that to a lemming meant that the lemming was sacrificed, and you could not get that lemming to the goal. So you couldn't. You could certainly kill all your lemmings and have fun watching their heads explode, but that wasn't the way to win the level. But it certainly was a way to show your friend Bob how cool Lemmings was. Watching all those lemmings go boom. However, the point of Lemmings from a mechanical point of view was about the fact that you did not have direct control over your avatar or avatars. You had to change the environment in certain ways in order to get the result you wanted. I think that's what fundamentally is distinctive about the Lemmings style of gameplay. Now, if it was just Lemmings, I wouldn't even call it a genre. Interestingly enough, it's definitely it qualifies as a very lesser known genre, because while there are copies and there are clones, there aren't too many. There really aren't that. I mean, there are enough, but not. It's not anything like an RTS. It's not anything like an RPG. It's not anything like some of these big ones. I mean, it's not even like Angry Birds. And as a result, I don't have a ton to say, especially since these, Lemmings was a little bit of a niche game itself. So all of its follow-ons and copies are also, unfortunately, none of them have broken out. So up here on the screen, you see 3 other examples of Lemming-style gameplay. A game called Eets with a little rabbit. A game called Flockers, which is kind of little pigs or little sheep. And a kind of a hand-drawn one called Your Doodles Are Bugged. And they all have that same kind of thing. It's a puzzle game. There's little avatars marching along. They're stupid, and you cannot directly control them. That's generally how it's supposed to work. I always loved Lemmings, and I think Lemmings is an evergreen game idea, and I think there's nothing else really like it out there. And so game ideas that are, copies and clones like Flockers and things like that, and Your Doodles Are Bugged, are quite legitimate in my opinion. No reason not to enjoy them and make more of the same type. And I think that there's a room. One of the little side aspects of Lemmings that was very distinctive at the time on the Amiga, at least, was the fact that, much like the previous genres I was talking about with Scorched Earth and tanks, artillery games, worms, the point was destructible and modifiable terrain. And in the 2D world of these early games like Lemmings, modifiable terrain meant pixels of a larger bitmap. So these games would actually have, the world would be made up of bitmaps with, 1 pixel on the screen equals 1 pixel in the memory. And so it could be that each pixel could be modified in real time. The little lemmings could blow up and it would leave an actual crater in the ground, and that crater would modify how the other lemmings moved across that ground. If the crater was in such a way that it blew a hole in the side of a hill, then maybe the other lemmings coming up behind the explosion could not get up the hill anymore, because the explosion had scooped a big scoop out of the landscape, and now there was a solid vertical wall where there was a nice hill before. And that really played into a lot of the puzzles of Lemmings. And I, to one degree or another, if you look at the Doodles Get Bugged one on the upper right, you can tell very clearly that that's a game where you modify the terrain in a different way. You actually paint the terrain in real time to let your little bugs move. So I think the modification of the terrain in different ways is a key part of a Lemmings alike. And I think that there's room for modifying the terrain in interesting ways, beyond just, oh, pixels got exploded. So that's certainly something that anybody could explore. Lemmings is, again, the Lemmings alike, the Lemmings style of gameplay is so not overserved. It's very underserved, and there's plenty of room for exploration in that space. So that's what I have to say about the Lemmings genre, a genre which in itself is based on a single game, and is not a very big genre at all, but it's more than just Lemmings. Alright, we've talked enough about Lemmings. We've also talked in the past about how Adam Para, my mistake, recently sent me some craft meat products, and I've been trying them out on this channel. I've got the last one right here. It's Zix beef with pheasant sticks. Of course, we've tried sticks before. This might be a jerky channel, but it's not all jerky all the time. And so these little sticks are gonna cover the bill. Beef with pheasant sticks. Why don't we give it a try? I'll open it up. Each individual little stick. It's almost like a little sausage roll. Let me see. I think I got more stick than I wanted here. Try this one. All right, nice greasy. It's like a bunch of meat sticks kind of piled up in this bag. Okay, here comes the spice. Okay. Well, it's definitely a meat stick. One of the things about meat sticks is that they often tend to be quite a bit greasy. And these are too. I would not say this is the worst, but I mean the worst is when you get a meat stick that just tastes like a tube of grease. And there's definitely some texture in there, but still pretty darn greasy. It's also dark and definitely has a lot of spice in it. Definitely burning the back of my throat. Not bad as beef sticks go, but I've had better and worse. Definitely spicy. Would I call it bold? I think I would. I think I would call it bold in a kind of a dark way. It's definitely not bold in a cheerful, light way. The first Zix beef jerky that I tried that Adam Para sent me, I described as orc jerky because it's very dark. and very bitter. This is not so bitter. This is actually quite a bit. This is the most spicy of the Zix products I've tasted. And not so much molassesy as other products, but definitely, a very beef stick, very much, what you would expect from a beef stick. It's all kind of piled up in that bag, but if you took it out of the bag and laid it on the table straight, it would be long beef sticks, like like the Slim Jim style beef stick. Yeah, thanks, Adam. And speaking of Adam, at the end of the show, we always talk about the mailbag. And what happens in the mailbag is, you guessed it, another reply on YouTube from Adam Para. And believe me, Adam, I really appreciate it. So, Adam writes regarding the video from last time, which was about BBS door games. He wrote, "Remember playing games on bulletin boards back in the 90s. I was so excited to talk to people over the internet, I told my mom about it. She immediately told me the dangers of talking to strangers and said that I would be kidnapped if I didn't stop. Thinking that no one would want to kidnap a chubby kid from Fort Wayne, I continued to chat and play games using my Commodore 64. Yeah, that's about right. I got to tell you, Adam, I kind of experienced the same thing you have, and certainly we're of an age. We grew up connecting at some point to BBSs from our Commodore 64s. I don't know that my parents really ever had that talk with me. They, looking way back on it from time I was given a lot of rein. I was not on any sort of tight leash from my parents. I think it's probably because I was the fourth child. By the fourth child, parents kind of give up and let kids do whatever they want, more or less. And I certainly was the benefit of that. But I certainly was out there, plugging in and doing my Commodore 64. Only had a 300 baud modem though, and there were a lot of local BBSs that would literally just send me a nasty message saying, "Get a real modem, kid," and kick me off. So I wouldn't say that I really plugged into that scene very much because I just didn't have the technology at the time. But I get it, and I, I get what your mom was saying. That's a great story. Okay, so we finished up the 3-pack of Zix products with the beef sticks, and boy, they were beef sticks, and they were pretty zingy hot. In fact, let me take another drink. I might even say bold. So the final thing let's do before I go is the game called Now That's a Game, and the game is played very simply. You, the viewer at home, think of a cool game idea and word it in the format of it's a game where a something has to something a something on a something. You fill in the blanks with whatever you want, and you write that in a comment on this YouTube video, or perhaps a comment on Facebook. And then you say, "What do you think?" And the next time I do one of my Jerky videos, I will talk about this with the rest of the viewers, and we can have a good discussion of what kind of wacky game that is, what it would take to make it, where it would live, and who might like to play it. So give it a chance. It's going to be fun. All right. I appreciate, as always, you coming and watching this video. And if you want to, you can hit subscribe and hit that bell button so that you can be notified every time I make one of these videos. But anyways, yeah, appreciate you being here. Stand by for the next one. Thanks.